second. I think we're almost going live. Yep. Does someone want to do the intro once it actually goes live?
And and record it as well too.
All right, we're live. Yep.
So I guess welcome back. And we took a little bit of a break last week. And so we're super excited to talk about business tripwires today. So we've got several things that we've kind of gotten into a little bit of this. I think touched on some of these topics before, but these are just some things that either we've personally experienced, things we've seen, clients that we've worked with, or businesses we've worked within over the years. Each of us has many, many years in the business world. So we're just going to talk about some different topics as far as business tripwires and ways that can either cause you to stall in your business or maybe lose sight of where it is you're going. So I don't know, Laura or Allison, who wants to start?
Allison, you can go. I'm fighting in the background.
That's cool. When I first started my business kind of entrepreneurial journey, which was about 3 years ago, there were lots of, I guess I would call them now cookie cutter ways that you could get to XYZ and, you know, ABC and so forth like that. And the one that was, I guess, most prominent was this is what you need to do to get to 10K months, because that seemed to be the benchmark that existed, or what was relative or a priority in kind of the online space, you know, getting to 10K and then replicating and just kind of keep going through. I myself did jump on to a few of these programs. And what I discovered when I got inside is that they were all very generic and they didn't really take into account certain types of businesses, certain types of people, even certain types of products and stuff like that. And so I was left a bit disheartened. I think it's probably about the whole experience. But what it did teach me is that there is no one, I guess, strategy or tactic or kind of platform that will work for everyone, and that there is always going to be a certain element of bespokeness, so to speak, when it comes to your own personal kind of evolution and growth in your business. So I kind of set out to find that for myself, and it took a couple of years because I had to wade through a lot of fluff. And after that, I've come to something that I know to be true for myself, that sometimes, actually most of the time, tactics are really shitty. And tactics generally are very persuasive and manipulative in manner. However, the strategy that sometimes can drive that tactic, i.e. it's generally coming from someone's like kind of unhealed crap, i.e. scarcity. When you kind of get behind it and look at the strategy about, you know, you can do this on here, over here, and then you work that through, and it requires a consistent, dedicated act. So you need to do it not only for a week, but maybe for 3 months, and then you assess it, get feedback, and then you kind of move forward from there. So for me, it required a cooling of the jets and just getting one thing, sticking to one thing, executing it, keep on executing it, get feedback, and then keep going again. So that really allowed me, I guess, to put on my blinkers in my business and really just tell a lot of things and places and spaces to kind of go away, because it's not helpful having all of that noise directed at you in the online space. And I understand that it's a really noisy place to be, for sure. So yeah, that was kind of my experience of the cookie cutter.
I think it's one of those things, right? Because on that topic, it's like, it's one of those things that literally, when you first come into business, you're kind of almost like seeking and searching. I know we've actually, we've talked about this a little bit, but you're seeking and searching everything, going like, how am I just going to figure that out? Like, how am I going to get the consistent income? How am I going to, you know, reach this X amount of, like, you know, whatever that, like, that number is for you per month? Like, you know, how am I going to reach 10 grand a month? You know, how am I going to replace my current income to then be able to kind of be in my business full time? And so there's a lot of all these like how questions. And then with that, what tends to happen is we actually get really lost, and we end up taking someone else's version of what that looks like for you out in the world, and this is where the cookie cutter approach comes from. It's like, I can't tell you how often, in the last couple of years, there's all these programs. It's like, reach X amount per month, do this per month, like, and you buy into it, because the number one problem that you have, well, I see the number one problem that you have as a business owner is consistent income. Like, particularly when you're first starting out, you're going out in and of yourself. And so then everybody's looking for that. And then that becomes the thing that's like the, I don't know, the golden goose, so to speak, but in actual fact, what actually needs to be taught is like, we get into the, I think I actually voice messaged you guys about this the other day. It was just like, we get into these states of being like, I'm seeking the $10,000 a month. But what you're being taught is this level of the person who's actually achieved that. What's not being taught is actually what it took to get there.
Yeah.
What it took to be in alignment with whatever that number. And, something that I really feel strongly in business is that we have capacity. So we have capacities on and our ability, our level of, how much we can actually bring in financially, like what that energetic capacity is. We also have capacity of how much we can actually hold energetically. And until we actually acknowledge what that is for us, then that's it's almost like, until you break that ceiling, until you actually like overcome whatever that limit is that has been placed, there's an inability to go beyond that. Like, and it's like, we have to acknowledge first what it takes to get to whatever that illustrious ceiling is for us. And, and this is where like something over the last, couple of years is looking at that. Like, if you will know if your income, for instance, has always been under 70 grand, jumping into your business, until you acknowledge what it is to break that ceiling for you, whether or not it's energetic, whether it's belief, whether it's, whatever it's strategy, whatever, until you figure out what that is to break that ceiling for you, you're not going to get past that 70,000, because that is your energetic capacity. And we need to move beyond that. So that topic just took a different turn to what we were planning.
But it's very true.
And kind of veering it in a little bit different direction too, is I guess it's just like a recognition that obviously when somebody develops a program like this, they're not actually covering every scenario. They're not getting to know you in your business. So it's like a recognition of, that'd be like prescribing penicillin to everybody, or, you know what I mean? Like for all different ailments, it just doesn't work. So it's like, is there value sometimes in these programs? Possibly, but you have to realize that they're made in mass, and they're made just to kind of get them out there. But it's not actually, there's not being work done with the individual to get to know their business and their personal, like Laura was talking about, their personal maybe beliefs, their personal limitations, their personal energetics, because all of those things can play into the business in addition to the business and its foundations itself. The business and its foundations itself is a whole thing to uncover, but then you also have to look at, especially if it's like a solopreneur, who is heavily involved in that business, then there could also be some personal things or personal, energetics that are playing into the business as well. And so those type of programs, there might be some value in it, but just understanding that a cookie cutter strategy is not going to work because it doesn't look at the full picture. It only gives you one little piece of it. And this was something we were talking about a little bit ago, is like a lot of what we see in the information out there is you're not getting the full picture. And even when you're looking at sometimes the success of other people, you're not getting the full picture of everything they did to get there. You're just getting this tidbit that they're sharing in that particular program, but you're not seeing everything else that was going on underneath and around it, I guess.
I think that was one of the biggest things for me, the realization that, when you jump into these cookie cutter type programs, or, looking for cookie cutter strategies, that there's no acknowledgement in that kind of like cookie cutter, essentially, that kind of literally looks at where you're at, like where you're at personally. Like, you know, and where, you know, the human body it's trained to, you know, it figures it out, you know what I mean? Like the human body is trained, what's the word for it? It's almost like,
Adaptable.
yeah, it adapts, right? It adapts to the situation. And, you know, and so does our energetic body, so does our, you know, our business body. And so in many ways, like we can take some of that strategy and you can utilize it, and some of the things are going to work, but a lot of it's not actually taking into account exactly where you're at and what your imprint is needed in order to, like, for you to scale to those places, you know. And so, like, I'm not going to kind of sit here and like poo-poo a lot of it, because a lot of it is amazing, and, you know, everyone out there is actually doing their thing, and, you know, that's a great thing. But it's like looking at each person. If you're not getting the results that you're after, it's like, what is your personal strategy to get that result?
Yeah.
And it's when you know that is when you'll actually achieve the result that you're looking for, whatever that is, you know. And I think this is where, like, the illustrious, like, you know, income ceiling, you know, whatever that is, like, whatever that ultimate goal is, it becomes illustrious when we're actually, you know, looking at it from a place of, I've got to figure it all out myself, and none of these programs are working for me.
Yeah, it's a fascinating insight, actually, because when I think about where I started, so for example, I think about where I started, where my kind of base reality, I guess, was when I started my entrepreneurial journey. And then when I started to look around at other entrepreneurs online, mostly because that's what I was exposed to. And then there's a certain kind of benchmark that comes through. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm not doing that. So what's my kind of reality? Is it, am I comparing myself to them? And the reality was, yes, I was. But also, I think with what happens in the online space, like we've spoken about, is like somebody, and I'm just going to use an example of somebody that I know. Somebody's starting points can be very different when it comes to being in an online business. Someone could have actually already had a brick and mortars business, and they've transversed, like, parallel across into an online space, and they've brought with them all of their clientele into this space. And they are starting from a very different starting point from me, which had 0 people on my email list, 0 people on my Facebook, 0 people everywhere. And I just started. It's also networking. Like, who do you know is also a very different starting place. What kind of capital do you have behind you is a different starting place. What kind of people do you know in the industry? Who can you get in touch with and stuff like that? So there are varying variabilities that go into this starting place. And I think part of what I saw is that I was comparing myself to somebody who at that point in time had essentially built up a business that I knew nothing about, that was very similar to what they then started to do in the online space. And so they were starting out, you know, if we're going to talk about numbers here, you know, they were probably starting out, I was probably starting out with 0, and maybe they were starting out at like 40K already. And so there's a very different feel to that, and a lot of different things that one must explore and understand and kind of come to grips with in that. But the full picture is never told. Even when people talk about they make XYZ this month, they don't talk about their expenses, which is basically the most important thing that you need to talk about, because you're just talking about revenue. You're not talking about profit. That is a very different conversation that we're having. So I think that's also the thing that we need to explore, and that asking questions is also something else that I think is really important too.
I think something comes up for me with that, like, it's all right, I'm not going to say anything wrong. Something comes up for me in that is, like, when I first did one of my coaching trainings, like, you know, someone actually said, like, a friend and mentor said, you know, you never know the price of entry that someone's paid. So you never know what it has taken someone to get to this point of success, like, or whatever that looks like for them in this moment. So you don't know, you don't actually ever see the background. And, you know, the further away you get from the further away that you get from the beginning, the more it changes. You know what I mean? And you only have to watch. So if you've ever watched somebody who has, you know, created seemingly instant success, like, it's like you only have to watch the story as it changes, as it goes on. And for me, human behavior is always something that I'm always, like, really super interested in. And the story changes, and it's not because they're trying to glamorize it. It's just that the human brain doesn't remember the nitty-gritty details of how you felt. It doesn't remember, it remembers the essence of what actually was coming through for you in that moment, but it doesn't remember how you felt to have $0 in your bank account, or if that's the place that you've come from, and like this is something like really, really kind of turned the tables for me. It was like looking at, am I trying to create the income or the business or the life from a place of need, because I need that income or because I need that thing? Or am I creating it from a place of desire to change, to shift something, to change the world? And those things, they're so closely interlinked, but the energy is completely different. If you're coming into business from this place of, oh my God, I need to pay my rent, or I need to do this, or I need this X amount of income by, the universe doesn't work like that. Sure, you might be able to create that income, or you might be able to create that shift and that change in the dynamics, because, essentially we all want that like lifestyle change. But if you're coming from this place of like really ingrained, like it's almost like panic, right? You're not going to be able to be in flow. Like you're always operating on a heightened sense of emotion, and then you're kind of like consistently seeking and searching outside of yourself, because actually it's coming from a place of lack and scarcity. You're coming from a place of, and to shift that means that we actually need to do the work on whatever lack and scarcity, whether or not your income is 3 figures or like 12 figures a month or year or whatever it is. Like if you're coming from a place of lack and scarcity and you haven't actually dealt with that, it's going to come up at any level. And having worked quite extensively over the years in a multitude of big and small businesses, and in spaces that literally like speak to this, I can honestly say, like, this stuff, this is where the personal development really begins. Like this is where, if we're not breaking down those barriers, we're not breaking down those chains that literally create that like almost cage in a sense, in it, like, in order to break through this ceiling or this cage or this like this income level, it's like I have to do that. If we're not breaking that down, we're not breaking whatever that is, then we're literally going to be stuck in this state of perpetual like roller coaster. It's like you have your highs, you have your lows, you have your highs, you have your lows, and you're unable to find this sense of like balance and neutrality.
Yeah. And, it's like, well, like on the comparisonitis too, it's really easy to, I think, look at maybe people that you admire within either the online space or in person. Once again, going back to not really knowing what it took personally to get there. And I forget the stats on some of the famous people like Oprah and Walt Disney, and like people, I think Walt Disney, somebody said he didn't have any imagination, and it's like, what? Yeah. But there's a saying that has like all these figures, but I don't have it right now. But it's like most of those people failed over and over and over and over and over again before finally it clicked for them, what they needed for them to get to where they were going. And so it's great to have, people you admire, but it's also easy to get caught up in, oh, they're doing this and this is working for them, so maybe I should do that, and to let that pull you off of like your course. And when we were talking before we started, I'm like, it's almost like we need to have blinders sometimes so we don't get distracted on either side of us. I mean, it's great to look at other people and to kind of, maybe get ideas or inspiration, but it's really important to come back to self first and to say, is this actually in alignment with who I am, who my brand is, who my business is, people I'm trying to serve? Is this my voice even? It's really easy to even take on terminology or ways of speaking or expression or even visual images. Like you might see somebody using something and you really like it. It's really easy to I guess, copycat that. And, you know, I think all of us have been guilty at it at some time or another. And it comes back to when you lose sight, you get, and it's kind of like you get caught in this perpetual motion. And a lot of it does have to do with sometimes that if you're coming from a place where you're not desperate, but you know what I mean? Like where you're like struggling, trying to figure things out, it's even easier, I think, to get pulled off course when you're in kind of that cycle of like, what do I need to do? This isn't working. This isn't working. And so then you're just like grabbing stuff. It's like, what is it? Throwing mud at the wall and see what sticks or whatever, you know, like you
Yes, throw spaghetti at the well.
Yeah. And I mean, it does. You get in that cycle and you're just like throwing stuff and just hoping something's going to work. But it's like, you're so disconnected. You're so disconnected from self and from why you started the business and what it is you want that business to do, that then you set yourself up, I guess, for that a little bit more when you kind of get into that cycle.
Well, that's the biggest tripwire of all, right? Like it's like when we talk business tripwires, the biggest tripwire, like I personally see, is literally this space of losing sight of self and what it is that you're here for. Like, cool. Like we are in terms of human behavior, we are going to mirror things that we see at work. Like that's just that sense of mirroring. Like, I think one of the we've probably all heard it over the years. Like, it's like if you want to be successful, model your
Model the
success on
behavior.
someone who got what you want, right? But it's like, when does that modeling become detrimental? So when does that, so if you've lost sight of who you are and what you stand for, this is where, as we've kind of mentioned over the other live streams, this is where your business morals and ethics and the thing that you're wanting to achieve is going to hold the foundation for you in moving forward. So it's like, instead of seeking out, we need to come back within.
Yeah. I mean, it's human nature to look outside at what is going on, like, because it's basically a feedback system. That's all that I see it as now. It's information, it's feedback that's coming back to you. But in order to take that information and then translate it into something that is useful for me or that's authentic for me, I actually need to come back inside again. And so that's what this is all about. It's like, yes, you may see whatever you see out there, but it's still going to have to come in here, and it's still going to pass through kind of like the gates of your own kind of personal values and ethics and wisdom and authenticity and what you actually really are here to do in the world. And if it doesn't pass through any of those filters, then it's actually just data. It's not even useful or relevant to you anymore. Now, that data may be useful and relevant for somebody else, but it's not for you according to your own unique holistic makeup. And that's okay. And I think sometimes myself hold on to things for too long that it just aren't relevant anymore. Because as you grow and evolve as a human being on the planet, our priorities and our relevance and what's valuable to us changes. And that change is also something that I think needs to be spoken about as well. It's okay to let stuff go. That was a priority or something that was valuable to you before. It's not valuable anymore. And that's just growth and evolution. Part of the thing for me was holding on to something for too long when I knew it wasn't working. And I knew it would never work.
I was about to say, like, knowing when to let go.
Yeah, and knowing when to let go and being like, okay, that's fine. I've done that, and I've done it, and I've committed to it for a certain period of time, and I've been dedicated to it, but it's not going to work. It's never going to work because it just grates up my values too much. And so that's also part of the know thyself kind of ethos, which is really important in business, because we can get drowned out by so much noise and perceived success and imagery and all this kind of stuff. Is that it's your business and it's your life, and these two things need to come in together, and that's the filtration kind of what's coming into your system and stuff like that. And there's a lot of other things that obviously lenses you can look at to further filtrate and purify the information that's coming through, but ultimately it's you. Like, You are the purification of all of the information and data that's coming through, and you define what's relevant and what's valuable and what's a priority for you in that space and time. And it may be different tomorrow.
And being okay with it being different tomorrow.
Yeah, because it will.
Yeah, I think that's another like interesting topic, just talking about allowing yourself to change. Like sometimes there's this thought pattern that we have to commit to these things and hold to it even after like we know it's not good for us anymore, or we know it's not working. And I think that's a very big misconception out there. And sometimes I think there's fear of like, oh, are people going to think that I'm flaky or I'm wishy-washy or whatever? And it's like, but when you stick to those things, people can feel it too. You know what I mean? Like when you're still trying to do the things that aren't working, for one, it's going to make you unhappy and drain you in your business, but also it's felt. So It's like, why not just let it go and let the evolution happen? And it's like, yeah, as humans, I think sometimes we dislike change. Like we don't want that evolution to happen. And so we sort of, we limit ourselves in that way by not allowing those things to fall away and letting the natural evolution of ourselves and our businesses go where it needs to go. And that's how you stay on the leading edge too. I mean, if you're truly looking to be out there and be somebody who is making an impact, you're constantly going to be changing, and you're constantly going to be doing things that maybe other people are not doing. So yeah, it's like let that muse and that creative energy come through, because that's actually the people who make the impact, is those on the front edge of things.
Yeah,
I see it a bit like Mad Hatter's Tea Party. Like, and you literally, it's just like it's change places, you know. It's just, you know, and not because none of that stuff doesn't come with you, but just because actually part of this, like the embodiment and the evolution and that integration and the implementation of what it is that you're learning through everything that you're learning, you can't expect to be in the same place. You can't expect to be the same person that you were 3, 4, 6, 12, 18 months ago. Like it just, if you're not evolving, then like, I mean, what are you even doing with yourself? Like, so it's just like, but it is that adaptation of just being able to go, you know what, I'm okay exactly where I'm at and what I'm growing to. And I may not know that exact path of what I'm actually going to next, but I do know that this is the right step for me to take. You know, and I think as human nature, there is a level of safety in certainty, you know, and that like we literally, you know, it's there's safety in knowing what to expect, in knowing that if I take this step, this is going to be the outcome. If I take this road, it's going to get me to here, you know. But the thing is that as you travel that course, as you travel that road, you're going to be picking up so much more information as you go.
Yeah.
And that, you know, at some point you've got to make a decision as to which way you go. And more often than not, we do try to hold on to the things that, you know, have kept us safe over that time. But the reality is that that's not actually where your evolution point is. Your evolution point is in taking leaps, in, you know, making decisions that may have been different to what you would have decided, you know, previously. It's in doing work that maybe you completely ignore that that's what you were really good at. Like, and it's equally letting go of things that actually no longer serve your highest and best good. Like, it's that place of just being like, okay, I'm actually in acceptance of like my weirdness in my flow. Like this is actually how it is.
You know, that's so funny. Like I'm reflecting while you're talking about like when I came into the coaching industry. Obviously, you know, my experience has been in business for like 20 years, and I had this huge resistance around teaching people how to do business, because I had in my mind this box of like, if I'm going to teach people business, it has to look like this. It has to be the things that I disliked in business, you know? And so it's taken me this many years to come back. I tried, you know, I went into style coaching and stuff, which I loved, but that was not my path. It wasn't, I was in avoidance of the thing I was actually really good at. And I was in avoidance because I wasn't asking the question, why am I in resistance around this? It took me these many years to figure out why, like that, you know, this is actually where I was meant to be, but it was because of my own mind putting limitations and boxing myself into a certain, like, if I'm going to do business, this is what it's got to look like.
Yeah. And it's interesting, actually. There was this experiment that I did on myself, because I am the experiment, where I was working with control and issues of certainty and things like that. And actually, what I did is I used to commute to work in my car once a week. So it was okay. There and back, it was about 45 minutes to an hour. What I started to do is I started to drive by intuition. Now, what that basically meant is when my intuition went move lanes, I had to move lanes. So it requires a certain amount of trust and letting go of control. And one day we were having fun, kind of like changing lanes and stuff like that. I was like, get off at the next exit. I was like, that's miles away from there. I need to go. Like, because obviously I always like love to push back on my intuition. And so I did it. And then something happened and I got lost. And then I went this way and I was like, oh no, I know where I am. And I literally turned around the corner as I came around this corner, and I saw like the sun setting, and I've never ever seen the sun set this way ever before or since. And it was all this like interesting, amazing pastel, like peaches and blues and pinks and yellows and stuff. And I literally stopped the car and just looked at it for like, 10 or so seconds and then kept on going. And the interesting thing is then, and this is my intuition, or like higher self going, if you didn't take the unknown path, you wouldn't have seen the beauty in life. And like that happens to us, for me anyhow, all the time, where I take the path most traveled, i.e. if you're talking about, your biochemistry, it's the rut in the brain or the pathways in your brain that you go down just by rote learning. When you jump off that pathway and you find something different, or you take a different turn, or you make a different decision, or you choose to jump into the unknown, beauty will usually find you, or you will discover beauty along the way. And I think that one experiment that I did for like quite a few months made me understand a lot of what I needed was actually just to relinquish control, or the perception of control that I had over my business and my life, and just actually follow my intuition where it went, listen to my own guidance, and then kind of execute it. And so that's kind of what I did after a while. It's just like, I can't be bothered with all the external noise. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do me, and we'll see where this crazy ride takes us. Because it has been crazy and it has been wild. And it means that I would never have met these amazing, beautiful ladies here if I had taken the path most known. And so I think that says a lot about being on the edge and being adaptable and flexible, not only in life and in business. It'll take you to places that are miraculous and amazing and beautiful, but it'll also connect you with people who are much needed on your own evolutionary journey, not only as an individual, but collectively as well. And that's what I've kind of discovered over time too. Like, this would never have happened if, I'd taken the path most traveled.
So I have a question on that then, because I reckon this will come up for a lot of people. Is, obviously when your brain is going into this state of being like, well, I can't do that. I can't, look, for instance, all right, we'll do the money conversation, right? Because it's the one that comes up majority of time for people. It's like, I need to earn X amount.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, how do you break, actually, the words, when you're stuck in this state of like, how do I break that cycle of money? I need X amount. I've got rent, I've got bills, I've got, payments that need to go. But obviously, so then that's like a lack of scarcity state, right? So that's like your brain just in overpower. And then this piece of being able to be in flow and trusting the intuition that's going to guide you. What are your tips, both of you, on bridging the gap between intuition and reality, in a sense. Like, it's like, because we don't want to get caught in the reality of, I need to earn X amount, therefore I must do X, Y, Z. But how do you, so, because obviously I have my own ways of doing it, but it's like, how do each of you break that cycle for yourselves, or embrace the cycle?
That's a good question.
And by the way, the words probably weren't even in there in the question, because it was like literally just streaming as it was coming through. But I mean, it's the reality, right? So I'll kind of talk to it a little bit while you guys think on it, right? So it's the reality of life, and this is why so many people get stuck in the how. They get stuck in this, like, how do I create income in my business? How do I even like outsource? How do I do this? Because obviously everything has the need to create a certain level of income, because money makes the world go around in so many ways. So everybody at the moment has this need to create a certain level of income for themselves, because that is their safety. That's their ability to, whatever it is, whatever their expenses are. And sometimes we can get really down on ourselves because we get caught in that, like, shit, blah, blah, blah is due and I've only got X amount.
Yeah.
Like, the ways for me, like, and I'll speak to, like, the ways that I break it for me is almost like there's a disassociation. So it's like, I do my numbers and I'm in doing my wealth work and doing, whatever it is that I need to each day. But then when that monkey brain comes in of, well, what are you going to do to fix that? How are you going to sort that out? How are you going to figure that out? It's like I disassociate from the monkey brain and I come back into a place of my heart. And this is where, like, there's always this, like, the seesaw. I don't know, you guys call it a teeter-totter, right? So it's a seesaw approach, and being like, okay, well, actually, I acknowledge that actually this is my basics. This is where I need to be. At the moment, I'm feeling like I'm not there. Cool. I need to let go of that monkey brain, because that monkey brain is going to steer me into places which, pull me down further and further. And then, energetically, it's almost like I play in this space of going, well, what would reality look like if I created this?
Yeah.
What would it look like if I called that in? And I go into this place that's probably more of play, more of like, what is my, what's in my highest, where should I focus right now? What is in my highest to focus on? What is it that I'm wanting and desiring? What am I actually going to do with that, that money that comes in?
Yeah.
Who am I going to help? Who am I going to support? What am I going to create? And I go into a state of play. Like, and that's just one of the strategies that I use.
Yeah. I will let you go, Crystal, because I think I'm still. Oh, do you want me to go? I don't mind.
If you're ready to go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think what you're saying, like, it's interesting trying to break down your own personal process of getting through bullshit like that, because that's kind of what I see it as. And I guess after a certain period of time, it does become something that you can just like automatically jump into. But if I was to break it down, then it would be very similar to something like what you're saying, like, i.e., this is my reality. This reality is, yes, I'm not going to deny it. I'm going to know that it exists and I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm not going to push it away because that is my reality right now in this present point in time. However, I know that A, sometimes my emotions lie to me. B, my monkey mind sure as hell lies to me. And C, I know that there's another way. And that's kind of what happens. I have curiosity to expand and think that there's something different. And then usually what I will do, and this is only because after a very long, protracted amount of time of having been in dialogue with my inner self, that I can actually have a real conversation as opposed to a triggered conversation by my ego that thinks that it's my higher self. So I know that they sound different and they feel different and they actually have different words that they use. That's what I've constructed and I know to be true. What I used to do, though, is I used to journal a lot. So I would journal, stream of consciousness journal, to kind of get out all of the stuff. And then after that, usually within about like 5 minutes, the magic would come and there'd be some kind of, I guess, way forward or some kind of decision or choice that I could make that would lead me to the next thing. And then that's what I would do. And then the next thing would come up and then that's what I would do. So it's about this saying that I never really understood what it meant until quite recently. The road will rise up to meet you. And so for me, that is very much my higher self. When I make those decisions and those choices to be in alignment with my own self, with my own creativity and expression and who I am, and I make those decisions, the road rises up to meet me and I can take the next step, and then I can make another decision and take the next step. So that's what I found to work for me. But first up, it does require an acknowledgement of where I am. And then also the sense of play or wonder or curiosity to go, but there could be something different. What can that be, and what can that look like? And so that's usually what happens in my dialogue now. Is it really journaling anymore? It's actually like a full-on conversation that we will have, because I know how my ego and my higher self conversation feels in my body, and so I can discern between the two of them. But that's over time, like 8 years of working like that. But first up, it was journaling. Yeah, takes time.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I can tell by the tone. I can tell by the tone and the quality and the speed of the voice as to who or what it is. And that's just discernment over time, and being side railed by my ego one too many times to get into trouble.
It's almost like where it comes from in the body too. Like it's just, it's almost like, you know, just to speak to that, like it's almost like the ego almost like comes from this, like for me, it's like the place that I think is my higher self. But in actual fact, it's like I know when the ego is there because it feels heavy. It feels like constricted. It feels like very like almost like the heart palpitations if you were to put like a physical symptom on it. Whereas like when it's your higher self, when it is this place where ego no longer belongs, it's almost like there's a level of groundedness and calmness.
Yeah. I've discovered for myself anyhow, when higher self is talking to me, which is myself, there is nothing. Like it's the sense of nothingness and peace that pervades everything, like beauty. Like if you were to be out in like a massive grassy field with wildflowers, and like the sun streaming down, and like there's a sense of beauty and peace, like in being in that place and state. That's what I know to be my higher self. Whereas my ego, very funny, it actually sounds like it's talking behind me. Like there is that sense of it's not really here. And there's a massive sense of a triggeredness, I think, to my ego, and that's kind of like the heart palpitation. Sometimes I get like sweaty hands as well, and like I start to do weird things with my hands when my ego is talking to me, because it's like my body's reacting to the lie. I think that's kind of what it is, or the mistruth, or the story that is actually not real or relevant anymore. Whereas higher self is neutral for me. But it has that beauty and peace to it. Yeah. And also like just doesn't care. That's the one thing that I know to be true. Like it just doesn't care. Like you do this, you do that, I don't care. Whereas my ego be like, no, you have to do that.
If you don't do that,
this will yeah. So there are certain tells in the body that you can signal what conversation and what dialogue you're having.
Yeah, it's you know, when you're talking about ego, it feels very primal. I guess the responses, it's a lot of like more survival type of feeling. Like if you don't do this, this is going to happen, or like just very much fear-based, and or just the lower frequencies, you know, just ego has to do, you know, with like jealousy, like all of those lower frequency type of things, or like so yeah, it definitely does have a heavier like feel to it when you're dealing with the ego, because it's it wants the attention, you know. It's like if you're not giving it the attention, it's gonna let you know.
Totally, but like a little kid, like you know, like if you've
like
I'm making the assumption that people have kids, but it's kind of like a 3-year-old toddler.
Yeah,
like it's just like clawing at you, wanting to get your attention, like, you know.
It was like it was almost like demanding attention, isn't it?
Oh yeah. But I think both of those, like a lot of those ideas that both of you brought out, and like I was really trying to tune into in the beginning and what you were talking about with the journal and like kind of just doing the brain dump. And sometimes it's helpful just if you can't make sense of it, just to dump it somewhere. And that also, like that journaling practice and things like that, help you to get to the space that you can start to distinguish between the two. But if you're not actually sitting in either meditation or doing something like that, it's like, I don't know that you're ever really paying enough attention to begin to discern the difference between, you know, your higher self and your ego. And so when I was thinking, like really in the beginning, before I got to that point, it's like you have to do something to disrupt. You know what I mean? Like when you're caught in that, you have to do something to disrupt it. And so sometimes it would be something as simple as like, okay, I acknowledge this is what's going on, but I can't sit in this space right now. Like it's not healthy. It's self-destructive at this point. So I'm not in the place to even begin to, I guess, reconcile what's going on or any of that. And so sometimes it's just like get out into nature and take a walk, or go get on the treadmill and punch something. I mean, scream in a pillow. I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of like doing something to break that cycle, that thought pattern cycle. And then once you've broken it, then I feel like then that's when you can really get into the journaling or the brain dump. But if you're really in that destructive cycle, I feel like it's important to break it somehow, doing something you enjoy that's going to take you out of that mental space until you're ready to then be able to go back and kind of tackle that.
Yeah. So one of the things that like I know, like in the beginning, I used to actually have to physically change my place. So it was like, you know, like so when you're so caught in that, like in that mind of like, you know, doom and gloom, because essentially sometimes when it is like that, right, it's like it's doom and gloom. If you don't do this, the world's going to end.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just like, and I would physically have to actually remove myself from that environment and actually take myself to somewhere else. And, you know, I mean, now I see those movements as like really getting myself grounded. But back then it was literally just changing the dynamic. It was changing the energy. And, you know, I never knew that that's what it was at that time. But, you know, here and now it's like, yeah, like it's those real basic things that, yeah, go out, exercise, get your body moving, even if that means you just get your feet in the dirt. Change your physical location to be able to change your mental mind, like mental chatter that's going on. And then that's when you're able to actually start asking yourself some questions. It's like, you know, is this reality? Is this true? You know, you can brain dump, you can journal, you can do whatever it's going to take, you know, to move yourself from that place. But I remember, you know, in the early days of doing some of this work, that a lot of it would actually, like, a lot of the things that we talk about when, again, this is that thing of like when you're looking to, you know, to get to those spaces, you actually forget what it's like in the beginning. So sometimes when we speak to it, it's like we're speaking at it from this level that's not even going to actually vibrate with each person who may be at the beginning of their journey.
Yeah.
So it's almost like there's an acknowledgement for what is coming through for you, and not making it good or bad, but like the acknowledgement of this is where I'm at right now. You know, and I equally acknowledge that it's not where I want to be. I want to actually shift it and change it. So therefore, what is it that I can do for me right now that is going to change this? It may not change my reality, but it's going to change my emotional brain. It's going to change my physical location, like whatever that is in those moments and for everyone it's different, right? And then we can actually start to talk to the emotional brain. We can actually start to talk to the body and go, okay, we can talk about, you know, making your bank accounts fun. We can talk about, you know, like being able to change your financial reality and that kind of stuff. But it's not until you actually move away from that initial, like, you know, the world's going to end, I'm in flight and fight, to be able to actually kind of see whatever that path is or whatever that journey is. Like, but it's got to start somewhere, and it's finding your starting place.
I think it's important too to mention, as we're talking about all of this is like the same type of things with overwhelm, or like when you're working at home and it's like you're sitting there and you're working and you're working and you're working and you're not getting anything done. Like Oh, Laura, you went. But I mean, it's like, you know, these same type of techniques, because yeah, I mean, even with overwhelm, like sometimes you get in these spaces where you have 100 different things to do, and it's like you can't seem to figure out where to start. And so it's like this same things, these same type of techniques that we're talking about when you're in like that really yeah, I don't remember the terminology we
Overwhelmed
were
kind of
using.
thing. Yeah.
But I mean, it's useful to mention this is the same type of stuff where if you're at a space in your business and you're feeling overwhelmed, you may just need to get up and to another location, and then when you're ready and you kind of broke that cycle of being in overwhelm, then to come back to it and kind of do the, you know, the brain dump or the journaling or the meditating. So yeah, I thought that was useful to mention.
Yeah.
Which then takes us into, sorry.
Sorry, I do that in my business. So I don't have an office as such. So I work on like the dining room table on one end. And so I discovered that I was doing that very thing where I would sit at my desk and I'd just be like, oh my God, this is like fluff, basic fluff. You know, we all know this. We've done it before. And I was like, oh my God, Alison, you're just doing fluff. Like, what are you doing? So what I did was I got up and I went over and I made myself a cup of tea and I grabbed my laptop, because I was working on a laptop, and I moved it around to a different place on the table. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm just like getting so much work done. It's just, it's a change in something will change like, even your mental orientation around it. And then fun is going to come. So I'm just going to go mute for a sec, hold up.
Well, it's the perspectives, right? It's the perspectives that change. And, you know, and this is where we actually, well, the topic of conversation that we were going to speak to was actually in and around like boundaries and self-care and finding that balance, right? And I feel like this has actually brought us straight back into that, because it is this place of, you know, being able to come back to what brings you into balance. And when the body is in balance, and again, we're going to speak to the things that like are passionate for all of us, right? But it's like when the body is in balance or the emotional brain is in balance, then we can actually do business.
Yeah.
And it's finding the perspective that allows us to do that. And it's like the recognition that if you are feeling stuck, essentially the emotions in the body are stagnant.
Yeah.
So how do we get those moving? You know, and like, yeah, and that, I feel like that there is like, that's the thing that actually creates, you know, this overwhelm is actually what creates burnout. The overwhelm is like, I have to do everything for myself. I just need to figure it out. You could be sitting at your computer for 20 hours and still freaking achieve nothing. But if you just get up and walk away, you have a completely different perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and this is where like I really believe in, you know, chunking our day down, because it's just like I almost have like, I don't think I've ever spoken about this, but I have like structured flexibility, right? So it's like I have things I want to achieve during the week, but I'm flexible in how I achieve them. So if I'm sitting down and I'm not feeling the call to write content, well, I'm going to do something different that's on my list in that block of time that I've given myself. But I'm not going to give myself a block of time and just sit here and just stare at the computer and scroll Facebook. Like,
well, we've probably all done that though, but to be honest, but
that was yesterday. Today's different.
But it's like starting to recognize that and not,
Yeah. And I mean, if you're a solopreneur, it's just you know, you're kind of like the CEO, you're the finance controller, you're the IT help desk, you're the teacher, you're all of the things. Like sometimes all of the things are a lot of the stuff, and sometimes it's not actually important. And what is important is actually just kind of getting up, going out and changing your perspective or changing your kind of line of sight. And then coming back and sitting down and go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Because
it's really funny on that. Like actually the other night I had this moment of like, there was something in the business that I don't love doing. I don't love doing it, right? But I was just like, but I had to do it. And I reckon like the moment I voiced that I don't actually like doing it, you know, not that I was asking for help or asking for anyone else to do it, because it's my business, it's what I've got to do, right? It was like there's this piece of the puzzle. It was like, I hate this part of business. Like, you know, and it's not something I can hand over, because otherwise I would have handed it over by now. But it's like, I really dislike this part of business. But I'd made it out to be something so significant, so bad, like so like draining, that in actual fact, once I did it, I was like, it took me 2 minutes. Like it was like it was done. I felt good because it was in integrity for me to do. But we make things out to be so catastrophic.
Yeah.
And again, this is the brain, right? Like it's like it makes things out to be so catastrophic, but in actual fact, part of being a business owner is that it just had to be ticked off. I just had to do it, you know. And it was a case of just being like, cool, I could probably outsource that in time, but at this point in time, if that's something that's not outsourced because it's something only I can do. Like, so it's just like it's from that place of just being like, thanks, Mum. It's from that place of just being like, well, at the end of the day, if you could sit on it and you could keep making it into something that's disastrous, or you could just like quickly do what you need to do and shut the computer and be done. And so I quickly did what I needed to do and shut the computer and I was done. Like, but say even after all the work, there's still that stuff that comes up that you're just like, I really don't enjoy doing this. I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I guess that's the conversation, isn't it? When there's also this change that occurs from being a solopreneur to I'm kind of go move it into an entrepreneur, where you actually have that element where, okay, I don't want to do this by myself. There are elements of my business that A, I don't like, and B, I do know, but I am able to hand them over to other people. That's when another kind of element comes into it of like, I'm not going to say outsourcing, but I'm actually just going to say hiring expertise in areas that you would prefer not to do. Because we all have them. I mean, for me personally, social media is just like painful, but I'm not necessarily at that stage where I will outsource it, but I know it's coming pretty soon because I'm just like, it's going to open up so much more availability and capacity within myself. It's just something that needs to happen. And I can recognize that in myself as well. I mean, certain elements I probably will not outsource, but there are tons of things within the entrepreneurial solopreneur kind of journey that you can actually get help with, and you can start to create a team and people that you trust and want to bring on board into your own kind of value base and work and business and stuff like that. That will actually be a really harmonious kind of synergistic relationship. And I think that's also really something important to speak to as well. Like, when do you get to that stage? And what can you do? Because that's challenging as well. Throws up its own little curveballs to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about that perception that, you know, is kind of put out there that when you're first starting out, you have to do everything yourself. And so a lot of people, I guess, feel like they don't have an option. And it's like, even if you aren't like legitimately, and this is where you come back to being honest with yourself, but the thing is it's like being open to it. And you know, there's people out there who want to help you. So even if financially you're not at a place where you can outsource it, keeping yourself open, like, I'm willing to receive help.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of times we get stuck in this, we almost shut down the walls where we're like, no, if I got to do it myself. And so we don't even allow for those opportunities to be there. We're not even open to see them. So it's like, yeah, changing that mentality and you know, having kind of that list of, you know, things that, well, first, the things you enjoy, like, what would I like to do more of in my business? And and then having the list of, these aren't the things I particularly like in my business. And these are the things that when I can, or when the opportunity presents itself, whether it's through, you know, some sort of trade, or whether it's actually hiring someone, you already know what it is you're looking for help with in your business. So it's like it's also sort of like playing in the imagination too. Like, imagine if, you know, if I had somebody to help me with these things, how much more could I do in the business of things I actually enjoy, the things that only I can do in the business. And so it's like allowing yourself to play in that space, so you are in that energy of receiving, because like I said, so often we're just shut down to it. We're not even open to looking for it, open to receiving. And this is even within your family. Like sometimes when you're, we're all, moms and, have partners and all of that. Sometimes that help can come from within your family too. And it may just be help around the house, but sometimes we feel as women that we have to do everything ourselves. And then we're feeling the overwhelm because we're being pulled 100 different directions. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way, because a lot of times there's people willing to help us if we would just either ask or be open to it.
Just ask.
And I think this takes us straight into our next live stream, right? So this is that whole thing of just being able to, like, the help is actually available to you long before you actually think that you're ready. Like, and then this is the part where it's just like, as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, whatever, like we perceive that we need to be at XYZ level before we ask for help. And and as particularly as women, we struggle to ask for help. And the biggest thing that comes back is like, oh, I'm not supported. I don't have any support. Like, and something that all three of us can really speak to is that, like, your ability to ask for support in the areas that are going to fulfill you the quickest is what's going to get you to that next layer. Is going to get you to that next level that you desire to be.
Yeah, and the really interesting thing that I've discovered, I mean, I should have found it a long time ago, but I have now, and that's okay, is that the really interesting thing with energy, i.e. I don't have enough energy to do this, I don't have enough energy to do that, and like energy in and of itself is a self-perpetuating machine. So when one exerts energy or, puts energy out, energy comes back into the system. And the quickest way for me to get energy as such is to do exercise, because exercise actually cuts through all the stagnation like we were talking before, and actually allows me to be in a state of energetic, or in a movement, so to speak. And so that definitely helps me. And I think that's an important thing for me as an entrepreneur, especially when I get into those sticky phases, like energy, I just need to move. I just need to do something. I need to go somewhere different. And this is also the energy of asking for help as well. There is stacks and stacks of help out there. We just need to be open and willing and kind of allowing to even think that it exists, and then asking for it, which I think is a really important thing, because it's all around us. It literally is all around us.
And it's what's going to make the biggest difference. Like, it's like we have these perceptions of the things that we should be kind of asking for help about. But it's like, actually, what is going to make the biggest difference to you? Yeah, like to you in your business or in your world, what is going to make the biggest difference in asking for help? Like, it's just like one of the things for me in my home life is actually having my cleaner coming. Like, it makes the biggest difference. It takes a weight off my shoulders, and it's something I don't enjoy doing. And if like last fortnight she didn't come in because I'd been sick, and I was like, and I'm noticing the difference in my energetic field now, in like in going, oh, I just want my floors done. Like, and so look, I'm so grateful for that. And that's in life, you know what I mean? Like, so let alone in business, it's the things that, like, we literally, they take up our bandwidth, they take up our time and our energy. It's like, what is going to make the biggest difference to you to be able to outsource? So what's the thing that you know that you need to be doing in your business that you literally avoid doing all the time? That's the thing that you need to be outsourcing. And you need to figure out whatever way possible to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question to ask of oneself as we kind of, wrap things up and kind of think about where we're going to go next. Like, where can you ask for help? Support, it doesn't have to be of financial nature as well too. I think that's also something that I discovered over my journey, is like a lot of the help that I received was more often than not like emotional and kind of mental support. Like, you can do this, like just go have a nap, come back to it later, kind of thing. Like, I needed someone to tell me to do that, which was just hilarious when I think about it. But like, sometimes you just need emotional support is what you need at that point in time.
I remember like years ago, my partner used to ring me when I was working outside the home, and he used to ring and be like, have you had lunch today?
Yeah.
All right. And I'd be like, no. You know, and it was the number one thing that helped me because I was working like stupid hours. I was, you know, as a rep, I'm on the road. So the perception was that I'd be always like free to have lunch, but I wouldn't actually stop and take that time. So,
Yeah.
all right. Next live stream.
Yeah.
Who's going to say
So
it?
who's gonna announce it?
I don't remember what I know it's Friday.
Yeah, sorry, that's Friday.
Friday, 7 a.m. my time. What is that your time?
9 p.m.
9
Australian
p.m.
Eastern.
Australian Eastern Standard.
7
Double check me on
a.m.
that, Allison. Make sure that's what we put out there, but that's
Yeah.
what I remember.
It is. It
Okay.
is totally.
And it's going to be recap and unveiling of like something super big and exciting that we have been working on since the beginning of the year.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think you messaged me when I was away. So it would be like the first couple of weeks of January. So it's now,
Yeah.
and it just keeps getting bigger as the weeks
I know,
go on.
right? Kind of cool. This keeps going.
So yeah, I mean, just us three are gonna get together and talk about all the topics that we've covered and try to nail it down to maybe the top important ones we want to recap. And then anybody who wants to drop anything else in particular they want us to expand on or we didn't cover. I don't know. We've covered quite a bit, but anything we didn't cover, and then talk about the big project we've been working on and how it's gonna be of like such service to so many, solopreneurs, businesses, direct sellers, you name it. So I'm just like, it lights me up. I can't stop smiling when
It's
and
cheap,
the feedback
right?
we're already
Just
receiving.
yeah.
Like the feedback we're already receiving on what we're putting out there in the world. So, I'm actually super excited to bring this and share it with everyone because it's been all the things we've been talking about. So
yeah, it has. And it's been born out of all of the things that we've experienced as well. So I think it's also a really good kind of like grounding into the mission and stuff.
yeah. Epic. All right.
So
Love you and leave you all.
yeah. See you all Friday.
Bye.
Bye.